Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about digital stealing, in quotes, and fairness. And I want to explain what I mean by that, but before I do, I want to give some background. Love giving context on these. I've made several videos that received a great deal of reaction, strong reaction, to the extent that made me rethink my own beliefs. I was basically looking at my own beliefs and going, maybe I shouldn't think it this way, and was there any hypocritical thinking here? Those videos were my video on capitalism. By the way, I'll link these all below. And then I did a video on game development caution. I did two parts, part 1 and 2. And then I did kind of two linked videos about what do gamers want and do developers even know what gamers want. All of those had huge reactions. And I like to think that a lot of people watching those videos started thinking about those topics themselves a little deeper, either based on what I said or what people in the comments said, because I know I did. Although I do know, at least judging on the comments, that there are some of you that are 100% positive on your own beliefs with no doubt whatsoever. So that group of people, those of you who are absolutely 100% sure of everything that you ever think, I'm not addressing you today. I'm talking about the other people who watch my channel who like to think about these topics and dive into them, because there's one I want to chew into today about digital stealing. And the reason I want to talk about that is I did two other videos that, taken together, made me think about this. And the thing I'm thinking about is it okay to take someone else's work digitally, not physically, without paying for it? And I said it generically like that because I had two videos that seemed to get fundamentally different and somewhat hypocritical reactions. One of them was on game piracy. And I'll link it below, a lot of people in the comment section said, yeah, game piracy's fine. I do it. It's fine. They view it as, look, this is what they usually say. Either they couldn't buy it, it wasn't available in their country, or it wasn't available wherever they were, or they literally did not have the money, which basically boils down to is they wouldn't have bought it. So there are no sales lost. So it was okay to pirate it. There were absolutely no sales were lost. And because the thing that was stolen was digital and not physical, there was no thing stolen. There was no physical thing stolen. It didn't prevent anyone else from buying it. So if I understood it, that was most of the people watching that video's justification on piracy. We were particularly talking about game piracy, but basically it was software piracy or any kind of digital piracy. Or is it? Because I did another video a while later called Fun with AI. And it generated a lot of negative reaction from people saying I was stealing from artists because generative AI steals work from artists and repackages it. And I was a little surprised because I literally made that as a lighthearted video, and it was really obvious I wasn't going to buy any of the art. I wasn't buying anything. I wasn't looking for prints of these. I wasn't looking to make a game with this, make money off of it. I was just having fun with AI, like the title suggested, which I thought would be okay. But a lot of you didn't think that was okay. And that got me thinking. And that's something I wanted to explore here and see if people in the comments would have good views on this, which is I'm looking for a fair and consistent belief to hold where those two kinds of things, piracy and generative AI, make sense. Because these are some of the things I thought about. So if you have an answer for me, it should address a lot of these things. First of all, is it okay for solo game developers, or small indie developers to use generative AI art? I mean, they couldn't afford to have paid a human artist. So again, no sales were lost, right? So if I understand the piracy folks' argument, that would be perfectly okay. Indies and solo developers are off the hook for using generative AI. But some of you might go, well, wait, then they're going to sell their games and make money. And I don't sell the games that I pirate. So that's a big difference. To which I would go, well, wait a minute. Many of you pirated games and then reposted the cracked versions. So you cracked the piracy, the DRM or whatever else was preventing it from being copied. Or maybe you didn't. Maybe you just posted all the data files up on the internet. By doing so, you certainly did cause some lost sales. Maybe you wouldn't have bought the game, but I guarantee you at least one person who downloaded those files probably would have bought the game had you not made it available. So you did make sales get lost. But what if you say taking something digital with no intent to sell it is okay? Well, that's a really broad statement, because are you saying that if people somehow got a hold of your text messages or your emails or anything that you're storing right now in the cloud, that's okay for them to take it? Even if they have no intention of selling it to anybody, they just want to look at it. So is that okay? Because you're saying, some of you are going, well, wait, there's a privacy thing here. Well, when people put some digital files up, they intend it to be private in the sense of, unless you pay for it, you don't have a version you're allowed to copy. But forget that. What if I just steal things to learn from them? Because copyright law does actually include a fair use clause for educational use. By the way, it also includes fair use clause for parody, but parody is really oddly defined because it's one of those like porn. It's, well, the judge will have to look at it and agree that it was parody. But the question there is, okay, so you've taken something that's copyrighted, something digital, to learn from. Well, how closely can you follow what you've learned from in making something new? I looked it up and the law said 50%. You have to transform it at least 50%. But it doesn't have any rule for how that 50% is calculated. Does it mean if you take a piece of art and change at least 50% of the pixels? That is not what it means. Basically, it requires a human judge to look at it and say, you have done at least 50% transformation. That seems like a really weird, premise for triggering whether or not you've changed something enough, you've learned something enough to make your own art. So I'm talking about human artists learning from other artists, or human programmers learning from other programmers. When does their art and code become their own? And this factors in because a lot of AI now is teachable. So does teaching an AI count? If I teach an AI how to code, is it no longer stealing code? Is that okay to have an AI programmer if I teach it? And now it can do a lot of code for me that I couldn't have done, or it can at least do code faster than me. And if that's not fair, then what about students in classes? If I go teach a class of human programmers and they go out and code. In fact, aren't I teaching people right here how to do game development? Is this going to be seen as wrong in the future? Do people always have to learn things entirely on their own from first principles, or it's wrong? You can see I've gone too far down the rabbit hole, and most of you are going, no, you've overthink it. Where did I overthink it? Because if you think selling something is wrong, if taking something digital and then selling it is the wrong part, then if people take something and just repost it for free, that should be fine, right? But it's not, because not all the privacy laws come factoring in. And also, and I've mentioned this before on this channel, ideas can't be copyrighted, only the instantiation of an idea. So I can tell you about an idea, and if you do the idea differently enough, that's okay. But if I post an implementation of it, whether it's a game that does the idea as a feature, or a piece of code that implements that, you can't take that, because that is the instantiation of the idea. And of course, you're probably thinking, well, Tim, that's privacy. I have rights to privacy, and that's not what we're talking about here. Well, if you violated copyright law, it seems weird that you would then fall back and go, but privacy law matters, because now you're picking and choosing what laws you want to follow. And the whole point of this is I'm trying to decide what belief I'm going to hold for all this that is at the same time both fair and consistent. I'm basically trying to get rid of the hypocrisy here. I realize there are some of you who are perfectly fine being hypocritical and holding two beliefs that clash, but I'm trying to figure out something for myself, which is stealing something digital for my own use, is it fair or is it not fair? Is stealing something digital and learning from it and then making my own thing later fair? What does own thing mean? What does making it mean? If I use an AI to make it, if it learned from the thing rather than me and it made it, is that making it? So these are all things I'm wondering about because we're about to enter a whole new technological singularity with these AIs, and we're going to have to figure these out. And I think examining your own beliefs isn't a sign of weakness. I think it's a sign of strength. I mean, faith is good and all that, but that's for religion. It's not for law. It's not for engineering. It's not for art. And I'm hoping one of you out there has a very fair and consistent answer for me to look at digital stuff. When can I take it? When can't I? And does that depend on how I plan to use it or not? Basically, I want to know, do you have a rule for stealing digital stuff that's clear and consistent and not hypocritical? I hope you do, because this is stuff I think about. Anyway, hope that gave you some things to think about.